Hello, friends of the podcast. This is your friend in the podcast, Josh Bloom. I am currently sitting in the window of the P as I begin another journey with you. Last week, I let you know that P stood for perplexed in regard to how my brother spent the birthday gift he gave me. But this week, P stands for pleasant because I feel a sense of resolve about the entire issue. I feel like having this marker to remind me that it is a waste of time to try and keep someone close who isn't interested is useful. It doesn't change my opened mind, however, as far as my willingness to accept an apology and to engage in constructive conversation. But anyway, that feels pretty damn unlikely at the moment. I have to shout out the Jacob Burns Film Center for making it right with me. I didn't tell them this entire sordid saga, of course, but I did ask if there was any way that they could help me out, and they graciously left me 2 passes at the box office, which I will use in the future to screen and write about 2 films. Exciting news for me and exciting news for you. When I picked up the passes, I sent a photo of them to my brother of those passes with a message saying that everything was fine and I knew he was mad at me at the time that he spent my gift. No reply, which didn't hurt because I felt good for behaving in a way that reflects my openness to the possibilities for change. But again, that feels pretty damn unlikely at the moment. But you may be wondering, why was I at the theater to pick up these passes in the first place if I didn't have a gift card anymore and am also very poor? Well, as I mentioned, the reason that I found out that the gift card my brother gave me for my birthday was used by him instead of me is because I wanted to go see a matinee revival of a childhood favorite film, The Goonies, at the Jacob Burns Film Center in Pleasantville. Like I said, today P is for pleasant. Well, with this matinee only being $5 and my investigation into the free parking situation in Pleasantville having yielded positive results, I decided to spring for the $5 and the gas and go for it so I could write about this film. Exciting news for me and exciting news for you. There was an additional added wrinkle. When I told my therapist this sordid saga, in addition to his top-notch level engagement with my plight as a professional, he also expressed great interest in taking his family to see The Goonies. I call this a wrinkle because he said he would give me a hug if he saw me there, which means personal interaction, which I do not feel violates any boundaries, but as a person who uses over-contemplation as a means of procrastination, I made a mental note to be concerned for no reason about this development. Let's do a cliffhanger. Was my therapist at the Goonies? Did he give me a hug? Was he there and pretended not to see me, or was he there and actually didn't see me, and I prefer to create a more dramatic narrative? Was he there ahead of time to put chewed gum on my seat because he is actually trying to sabotage my progress, but in a way that required 7 years of lead up to a meetup at the Goonies with a payoff that is nothing more than some gum on my butt? You will just have to wonder for now. What could have happened? In any case, I will be covering The Goonies on my Substack. I will issue that piece as a podcast, and you can also watch a Come With Me to See video of the day on YouTube. Here are some additional updates. My piece about the new Spike Lee movie Highest to Lowest, which is available to stream as of today following a very limited theatrical run, is coming along very nicely. But as I explained last week, I decided to write about the Akira Kurosawa film it is based on as well, and so it is taking a bit longer than expected, but it will be worth it, especially if you subscribe to my Substack at superjews.substack.com, because then you will get it delivered to your inbox. I will also post the Come With Me to See video of the day on YouTube, so please subscribe there as well. All of my social media links are at superjews.com. The video will also contain my entire McMuffin ordering strategy, including tips, tricks, and my actual lived experience, which includes harassment on TikTok from people claiming that the McMuffin isn't food. I get that whole take on McDonald's, but come on, this is just an English muffin, an egg, a piece of sausage, and a piece of cheese. There's not a whole lot of food to fake. I mean, yeah, it's not sausage from a humanely raised pig, but it's not being eaten by a humanely raised pig, so it kind of makes sense. I'm not far off from an individually wrapped slice of American cheese either, if I'm being honest. I am happy to announce that I have turned in the second draft of my book, and the manuscript has been accepted and is now on the way to a professional copy editor. I am just repeating what my editor is telling me because I have never done this before, but I am excited because I will never have to do this for the first time ever again. This has been an incredible learning experience, and just an incredible experience overall. It is not over, however, as there is still related work I need to do before the book is published. The tentative date is December 9th, and I also need to gear up to promote it in any way I possibly can. I let the person who is the main subject of the book read it the other day, and he freaked out. He loved it, but was not prepared for the mirror I held up. He was venting most of the morning, and I realized that I owed it to him to listen for one specific reason. He was vulnerable and candid and fearless in telling me his story, and I needed to be the same as far as his reaction to my interpretation of it. Which, if you are a listener to this podcast, which you are because you are currently listening to this podcast, you will know that I say what I think. Anyway, you'll catch my drift when you read the book that you will be pre-ordering soon. That you will be pre-ordering soon. I know I said last week that I would try to stay optimistic that my brother just made a mistake when he used my gift card, but now those thoughts have given way to accepting the reality that he used it because he wanted to use it. Accepting this has allowed me to think more about the positive experience with my cousin from a few weeks ago and how I can continue to cultivate that relationship, since he and I have so much in common as far as our personalities, ambitions, and upbringings. I am not sure how that will play out, but I have come to realize that not every brother has to be an actual brother, and a cousin is pretty damn close. Something that hasn't changed is my need for you to buy me a coffee, and since there is no buy me a brother because my real brother is giving me the hint that he is not so into being my real brother website, how about keeping it simple and just doing the buy me a coffee thing? There's no blood test involved or whatever would have to happen to buy an actual brother. I did my part by making it easy, so you do yours by spending $3 at buymeacoffee.com/Josh Bloom. This is episode number 47 of the Josh Bloom thought he would see his therapist at the Goonies and tempered his anxiety for no reason because he did not see his therapist at the Goonies, but big reveal, it turns out his therapist was at the Goonies with his children and did not bother to find Josh and give him the promised hug because he told Josh later that he was worried about giving Josh COVID podcast, aka the Josh Bloom Podcast. It is the latest edition of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration, days 222 through 228. This week on the show, on day 222, I wonder if you are drinking Patriot coffee, why there is no woke coffee, and hope that Bob Dylan will license his song One More Cup of Coffee to the woke coffee brand. I failed up until this actual moment to remember that Folgers used to have the slogan and jingle, "The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup," which literally contains the word waking, aka woke. So I guess there has been woke coffee all along right there in our midst. That's what they call indoctrination by caffeine. On day 223, I discuss my ride home from the Goonies, in which I turned on that channel that is slowly becoming a propaganda arm called CNN, just long enough to hear the leader of the Trump administration claim that he is stopping crime. I thought he meant that he is stopping committing crimes, but no, I forgot momentarily that he must have a small mouse that lives in his rotted brain that tries to remind him that he is a convicted felon, but that mouse just isn't loud enough. Also, I reveal that I once interviewed Corey Feldman. On day 224, I address the rumor that went around last weekend that the leader of the Trump administration was no longer with us. Personally, I did not believe these rumors because I do not believe that the leader of the Trump administration would go out quietly. He would never leave this earth without making at least a few parting insults at Barack Obama. I also take the opportunity to remind us all that we need to stop paying attention to this crap. On day 225, I posted a video that seemed to get shadow banned because I said I wish I could hate more. I re-edited it, however, to mute the word hate, and that seemed to help, even though I hated having to do that. My point was that with all the people hoping that by Monday we would see the leader of the Trump administration as Bernie in a Weekend at Bernie's type of situation, we failed to remember that this dude has grandkids who don't know that he is a piece of shit. Let's remember that. On day 226, I ponder the people who use that phrase touch grass as if we are all supposed to be the Peter Sellers film character Chauncey the Gardener, as name-dropped by King Ad Rock of the Beastie Boys in the song Shazam from their underrated late-career album To the Five Boroughs. This day is partially to remind us that time is short and to use it gloriously, but also to name drop this song and album because most people seem to have forgotten about them. Day 227 is for discussing faith, which, like Shazam, is an incredible song, but it is not Faith by George Michael, I mean actual faith. Do you know there are people who believe in God and do not believe that God is the leader of the Trump administration? Yes, they exist, and they are self-aware and critical enough not to believe the lies of the leader or the Lord. At least the lies of religion are supposedly based in love. The leader's lies are based in his love of lying and the marks who love his lies. On day 228, I elaborate about the reaction of the subject of my book and am reminded of the Barbra Streisand film The Mirror Has Two Faces, which I have not seen, but I was inspired by the title. When we see ourselves in the mirror and then one day there is someone else staring back that we don't recognize, that can be a very jarring experience. As I said earlier, I realized that when I gave my subject the book to read, I felt it was the right thing to do to be there for him as he processed my point of view. I am proud of the dude. I already told you to go subscribe to my YouTube channel. There is lots of content there that has nothing to do with the leader of the Trump administration and has everything to do with my other series playlists, like the 10-second songs I wrote and performed, or affirmations for the miserable, or misunderstood lyrics. You don't want to miss out on that or the upcoming movie discussions during my days out at the cinema in the Come With Me to See series. If you don't like typing superjews.com to get to my social media, you can always get there by typing IamJoshBloom.com. You can type that even though you are not Josh Bloom, because we still have that freedom in America for now. Thanks as always for listening, and now let's get into 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. Just so you know, I am writing this in the dark in my apartment long after leaving the P. I am in the dark because no one bought me a coffee and I cannot turn on the lights. If you feel like that's your fault, well, there isn't anything I can do about that. Enjoy the show. I'll be here suffering while you're gone. Day 222 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. Are you drinking Patriot coffee? Well, I sure hope you are, because otherwise you are a dirty, woke traitor. I heard a commercial on MSNBC. Yes, I listened to MSNBC for about as long as I had to just to hear this one commercial before I changed the channel to Howard Stern. I have a feeling that these clearly partisan companies run these commercials on networks where the audience will discuss them like I am on purpose. I think it is kind of funny that this is where we're at. But I do wonder why there is no woke coffee commercial running on Fox. Maybe there is. I haven't checked, but there should be. Just to balance out the ridiculousness of all of this, because at the end of this commercial, it said, "We don't need you, Italy. We'll take it from here." I think that had something to do with espresso, because real patriots drink espresso. They must look tough with their pinky sticking out. The commercial also used the words strong and tough and bullet and death and manly. You get it. Maybe it didn't use all those words, but that was the intent. You drink our coffee if you're a man, and you drink some other coffee if you're not a man. Men are men, including men who are not born biologically men who identify as men. Chew on that, bigots. That's the thing that needs to be in the Fox commercial. We make coffee for men who are not biological men but want to be recognized by society as men because that is their choice. And they're allowed that choice. Maybe Bob Dylan would license the song One More Cup of Coffee for it. I would drink that coffee. Hell, I would drink the Patriot coffee too, because it's just coffee. I really hope that a time will come very soon when we can get over this petty nonsense that keeps us from being able to acknowledge that regardless of how we see ourselves, regardless of how we want the world to see us, and regardless of how the world does see us, our time here is limited. Please remember this in your daily life. When you are going about your caffeination, just enjoy your drink and ignore the Trump administration. Day 223 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I am just trying to help myself. I was on my way home today from watching a revival of an adventure film from my youth called The Goonies, which the internet will recognize as co-starring meme icon Corey Feldman, who I actually interviewed about his music once. This is true. I took quite a few notes during The Goonies for an upcoming review I am writing from the perspective of an adult, living in a world where this movie would find a way to be criticized by people who like to get up every day and criticize. But that's fine. We live in different times. Sure. On my ride home, I flipped on the news for just a second because I never said never listen to some news. In fact, I said you must stay informed, even if it is just to be informed that the information ain't informing. I prefer to hear from the source, and I did when I heard the leader of the Trump administration comment, "They try to say I'm a dictator, but I stop crime." Honey, you need to start the crime stopping with yourself, okay? You are a criminal. You have been convicted of felonies. It must occur somewhere deep in the recesses of that rotted mind. There must be a tiny little mouse who lives back there and says, "But Daddy, you are a criminal. How you stop crime when you are a criminal?" I just figure it's in that voice because that is similar to the voice of Melania, who lives in his head too. I am sure. When she says, "Daddy, if you want me to sleep in bed, must top off bank account." Anyway, the leader of the Trump administration is a criminal. That's not an opinion. He's convicted, and not only that, he's an adjudicated rapist as well, as determined by a jury and proclaimed by a judge based on state law. That's gotta live in that little mouse's mind too. "Daddy, you are adjudicated rapist. You put fingers in where they do not belong, and you do not know that is wrong." Once again, similar to Melania's voice, and I'm sure she has said something that sounds very similar to those words. Anyway, I recommend watching a revival of The Goonies over contemplating litigation. It is a great way to ignore the Trump administration. Day 224 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. My name's Josh Bloom, and I'm just trying to help myself. Is he or isn't he? That is what everyone is talking about, and the reason everyone's talking about it is because we watch one video, and then the algorithm loads every other video about is he or isn't he, so is he or isn't he? Well, look, if he is, we will know about it. And if he isn't, we will know about it. So who cares? We should be ignoring the leader of the Trump administration, whether he is or is not, because even if he is, the Trump administration will continue, and I will continue to ignore it, because this is not ignore the leader of the Trump administration. This is ignore the Trump administration. And even if it becomes the Vance administration, I have to say, just theoretically, that I have a feeling that that is an administration that I am also going to want to ignore. But back to the issue at hand. Is the leader of the Trump administration alive or not? Well, frankly, I do not think he is the kind of person that would go quietly. I have a feeling that if it wasn't sudden, but looked like it was going to be a foregone conclusion, that the amount of rhetoric that would be coming out of the leader of the Trump administration would be at an all-time high. Do you think that he is going to leave this world quietly? I don't think so. I think until the very end, he will be spouting the anger and hatred and grievance that he always has. I believe that in his last dying breath, he will say, this is just a prediction, "I hate you, Barack Obama. I hate that you're so popular. I hate that you're light-skinned because it makes me think that if I was just a little bit more orange, people would like me." I would not be surprised in the slightest. Now, back to basics. I am supposed to be taking in less information, including about the health of the leader of the Trump administration. I need to be taking that time that I am reclaiming by no longer taking in this constant stream of information, including about the health of the leader of the Trump administration, to be more creative in my life, to be more available to the people I love, and to become the best version of myself. And I have time to do that, but I don't know how much time. Just like the leader of the Trump administration doesn't know how much time. So he can spend his time lashing out at Barack Obama in retaliation, and I will spend my time ignoring the Trump administration. Day 225 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I kind of like the player and the game. I'm just trying to help myself. I wish I could hate more. Because if I could hate more, I could get more immersed, more involved, and participate more readily in my community. And my community is currently wishing for the demise of the leader of the Trump administration, to the point that some are saying we are currently in a weekend at Bernie's situation. Now, I just don't work that way. I believe that wishing such things actually brings about negative consequences for me and the people I care about. It is like calling demons to my door, and frankly, I don't want to call demons to my door. Also, I think about the fact that the leader of the Trump administration is grandpa to some people. Now, I have said many times, including this week, that to some people he is daddy. To Melania, he is daddy. To his supporters, he is daddy. To the Trump administration, he is daddy. But I say that in jest. There are children that he is the grandfather of who don't realize that he's the leader of the Trump administration, the person on this planet who is single-handedly responsible for making other people's lives difficult and miserable every day of his could-be short life. To these children, he's just granddad, or whatever his grandchildren call him. Maybe they call him Pop Pop. Maybe they call him Daddy Dumbbucks. Just made that up. I don't know. But that's what comes to mind when I think about wishing ill on the leader of the Trump administration, because when it's someone's time to go, that's when it's time to go. Now, having said all that, there is a joke I have seen in the comments that says it is despicable that thousands of people are wishing for the demise of the leader of the Trump administration when it should be millions. And while I did find that funny, I do not endorse a premature celebration. I do, however, endorse ignoring, the Trump administration. Day 226 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. So, as expected, the leader of the Trump administration is just fine, as observed during his press conference today. Fine relative to the leader of the Trump administration, of course. He's continuing to do what he does, which is to be a lifelong lunatic. So, the few days of speculation about his health are generally unfounded. Why should we care either way? Well, we should not. How many times have I told you that what is important and what we should be caring about is ourselves? I'm going to care about me. Are you going to care about you? I mean, I care a little bit about you, but not as much as I care about myself. And that's exactly what you should say to me. Time is short, baby. You don't know how long you're going to be here. Frankly, I might be the last face you see. And what do you think about that? I'm fine with it. I don't know if you are, but I'm fine with it. My point is that the sun is out. It's the last few weeks of the summer. It's still warm. You should be out there enjoying yourself. You know that thing when trolls say touch grass And they just use it as an insult to make you feel like, oh, you're caught up in the internet. You pay too much attention. You need to go outside. That's just people who are projecting their lack of involvement in their own lives onto you. So I'm not going to say touch grass. Who the hell goes outside and touches the grass anyway? Chauncey the gardener from my mother's favorite film, Being There? You know, Chauncey got name checked by King Ad Rock of the Beastie Boys on their song Shazam from the underrated 2004 album To the Five Boroughs. You don't need to touch grass. You need to put on that record and shake your ass. Just get out there and enjoy yourself, enjoy other people, enjoy this world that we have been forced into against our will. We did not ask to be here, and so we are allowed to enjoy ourselves as much as we like, as long as we are treating other people with the respect of acknowledging that they are trying to enjoy their lives too. And when those lives intersect and we can make each other's lives better by being mindful of our behavior, being optimistic about our future, and being hopeful for a better day, then that is when existence is at its peak. That is when reality is optimal, and that is when we are creating a better world for the next generation, which happens to align with ignoring the Trump administration. Day 227 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I want to talk about faith today, and I don't mean the George Michael song, although I could talk about that for days. I am asking, is it possible to be a person of faith and also find the leader of the Trump administration faithless? Well, the answer is yes. You can believe in God and not believe that the leader of the Trump administration is him. These people exist, and these people voted for Kamala Harris because she is an interesting, qualified, and good-natured person who received 75 million votes for a reason. She is also a highly accomplished Black woman who stands up against systemic racism, bigotry, and the old white hypocritical patriarchy that exists in this nation and hates that because they are scared of that. People of faith who find the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration disgraceful are people who are not susceptible to the lies. These can be artistic people who see the creative life as the opposite of the life of people who support the leader of the Trump administration, who seem to believe that creativity and art is somehow woke, when it is actually the underpinning and the very basis for the lives that we all get to live. The followers of the leader of the Trump administration only get to unload the complaining and whining and smooth-brained version of logic into their phones because the phone was invented through the creative, scientific, and artistic ingenuity of people who do not believe your lies. Some may say, well, Josh, religion's a lie, God is a lie, and that may be on some level, but that is faith in something that is not of this earth. The followers of the leader of the Trump administration put faith in him as if he is not of this earth, but he is. And so he takes advantage of those who have faith in him, who are susceptible to becoming his marks. They are susceptible to his lies. They are susceptible to his lifelong honing of a power of deception that works its way on those who want to believe in the values of a higher power. They want to believe that a person that they have placed their faith in would not do this to them. But he does. He loves to lie to you, and you love his lies. I hope that anyone with misplaced faith can commit to a re-examination, and a good way to start that is to ignore the Trump administration. Day 228 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I wrote a book over the past year. And today I let my subject read the second draft of the book, and he freaked out. He didn't freak out because he didn't love the book. He did. He didn't freak out because he didn't agree with what I wrote. He did. He freaked out for those two reasons. I wrote a book that he loved about a life he hadn't realized he lived. I think of the Barbra Streisand film The Mirror Has Two Faces only because the title reminds me of this situation. The reason that title comes to mind is because when we look in the mirror, we see one person, but sometimes that mirror can begin to reflect back someone who we don't recognize, and that is what happened with the subject of my book. I spent much of the morning hearing him out, which is different from an argument or negotiation or persuasion. I didn't have to do any of that because he loved the book. What I was doing was allowing him to absorb the shock of being confronted with such a well-written, thoughtful, and entertaining depiction of the last 30 years of a portion of his life. See what I did there? I acted like the leader of the Trump administration by inserting compliments for myself into what I was saying. But really, holding up a mirror to ourselves, whether we take that risk on our own or someone like me does it for us, is crazy business because it can be painful, destabilizing, and scary. But when we do it, we are better for it. The only person who is better than me at ignoring the leader of the Trump administration is the leader of the Trump administration. He is not interested in personal growth, acknowledging his mistakes, or looking into the metaphorical mirror. He is not even interested in looking to an actual mirror unless it has been framed with that gold plating that looks like cheap crap, even if it's not. I am very proud of the subject of my book for his bravery. He knows me and how I write, and he took a risk by trusting that I would tell the truth as I saw it. I held on while he freaked out today because I owed him that. I caused that freak out. If the leader of the Trump administration was more like my friend or even more like Barbra Streisand by willing to see two faces, maybe he would not feel the need to subject so many others to his degradation. Maybe it is time for the leader of the Trump administration to stop ignoring the leader of the Trump administration.
Hey, it's Josh. I'm back. I really can't wait for people to read this book because I enjoy it even though I am totally sick of reading it. It didn't occur to me, even though it should be obvious, that I would have to read it again and again and again as part of this process. I wonder how a novelist does it. I can only assume that they have trusted editors and copy editors who work with them along the way to make sure everything makes sense and is as free of errors as possible, because you can't just read a book over and over and over. I love what I wrote and would be happy to never read it ever again. Thanks again for listening. Please leave a 5-star rating for the Josh Bloom podcast in your podcast app and leave a comment saying that you like the show. Don't forget to follow, and as always, I would appreciate it if you would tell a friend about the show. You could say, hey, listen, I know I don't normally recommend podcasts to you, but there is a very special podcast by a very special person with a very special name. I don't want to spoil it by telling you that name, but I want you to know that I am thinking of you and your podcast listening needs. I guarantee that your friend will pressure you to the point of bullying to give up that name. And when you tell them that name is Josh Bloom, and you keep them from devolving into bullying, well, then you may find yourself with a brother from another mother, and that is the point after all. Lastly, visit me everywhere for everything by going to superjews.com. That's superjerjews.com for links to all of my social media, and visit superjews.substack.com to subscribe to my Substack, which contains all of my long-form writing. Subscriptions are free or for a small monthly donation, you can support my work. It helps a lot. Thanks again for listening. I will see you next week.